Hi, friends. New and old. I'm Ethan Sawyer. New and old. That's kind of a weird. How do you define new and old friends? I don't know. Deep thoughts. It's me, Ethan. Welcome to the webinar. I'm gonna riff here for just a couple minutes, but we're gonna get started pretty close to time, like within the next, I'd say, minute and a half or so. But I do like to start with a little check-in to see how folks are and who's out there. So in the chat box, which this will also give you a chance to find the chat box, tell me where you're logging in from, because I'm curious to know who's represented. And the check-in question is, what's something that many people don't know about you? And you'll get to announce this to a room full of strangers. Whoa, we got a ton of folks responding quickly. What's something that folks don't generally know about you? What's something that you don't often lead with? If you've heard me speak before, this is kind of modified if you really knew me. And welcome on this Tuesday evening. My obsession for ramen, love it. I've asked 2 different questions. I've seen every Vermeer painting in the world. That's cool. I speak Spanish. I like it. Professional magician as a child? Wow. Cool. Thanks for these one-line personal statements. I'm appreciating it. And if you've heard me speak before, you're noticing I'm in a new location. That may not be all that meaningful to you, but it's meaningful to me. I've moved, and I'm out working out of my home office, and I've got this cool like glow of light that I'm really liking. And Adam's a death metal guitarist. Well, thanks, and hello, Adam. All right, let's get started. I'm Ethan. This is the webinar. If you're here to learn about personal statements, I got you. Let me just share my screen with you. How to write a great personal statement. This is part 1 of 2. In 48 hours, I'm going to be sharing some stuff that is not on the personal statement. That's all about the supplements and how to stand out in those. If you've got questions that pop up, I may answer them on the webinar, but if there's something that you're worried that I won't get to, or that by the time I'm done in the next 40 minutes I haven't gotten to, you can type it in the chat box, and I will I'll make sure that we cover it. Here's some fast facts on me. I spent some time at Northwestern and UC Irvine. I got a couple of counseling certificates. I started a website, collegeessayguy.com, which you've probably seen, that gets over 1 million unique visits a year. And I collect certifications in Myers-Briggs and hypnotherapy. And fun fact, thing you didn't know about me, I averaged 17.5 points per game in high school basketball before a career-ending injury. Yes, I broke my kneecap. That's for another story. Probably not a great college essay, because it would probably turn into the sports injury cliche essay, so I wouldn't recommend that for myself. But that's my fun fact. And I give away a lot of free stuff. I'm kind of known for that. If you go to the website and go to /free, you'll find a ton of resources. Also, lately have become known for this cool scholarship program that we basically pair students who identify as low income with counselors for free one-on-one essay help. You can find out more about that at collegeessayguy.com/matchletters. And what else? I wrote a book. I just wrote a new book, actually, that's coming out in a year. But if you're going to be at the national conference, I'm speaking to counselors now, I'm going to be giving away 100 copies there, some advanced reader copies. Benjamin, how do you get certified in hypnotherapy? Google hypnotherapy certification in your town, and you'll find out more. The podcast, I've got tons of resources on the podcast, more free stuff. Specialists, folks who know things about things that most people don't know are on the podcast. And this is an updated picture of my daughter, Zola, who's growing up. This was us. Where were we here? I can't remember. She just looks, I don't know, like Zola, like awesome. In the next hour, we're going to cover what is the purpose of the personal statement, 3 exercises. I'm actually going to give you more than 3 to help you find a topic, 2 ways to structure it, 2 example essays that, unless you were on my course this summer, you haven't seen. 4 qualities of a great personal statement. I'll do a little mini PSA for my online courses, and then we'll do a Q&A with y'all. So let's get right into it. What is the purpose of the personal statement? And I'm defining this in a different way because on my podcast, I had Katie Sweeney, who's a rep from Reed College, and she said this really cool thing that I totally agree with, that essentially your purpose, your unspoken thesis of your personal statement is that I'm going to make an awesome college student. I can't remember if she said awesome or rad, but that's totally what you're trying to do in the personal statement. And how do you do this? You're demonstrating a variety of skills, qualities, interests, and values that you're going to bring with you to college. So thanks, Katie, for that. All right, follow me here. Open up another tab and go to tinyurl.com/CEG9319. Okay, so I'll just type it in the chat box for you, tinyurl.com/CEG9319. This is a Google Doc that is going to suddenly become very crowded. And don't worry if you can't, for some reason, access Google Docs. I'm going to share my screen with you. Switching over screens, one moment, please. And hi. It allows you to go big screen for just a second. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. And this is going to be the main content. We're going to spend some time on this Google Doc. And the reason I did this is because then you'll have all the resources. But wait a minute. Why isn't it letting me sign in? You're probably not able to see that. Give me 1 second. Sorry, had it all set up. Ba-doom, ba-doom, ba-doom. Give me a second. Please, thanks for holding. We'll be right with you. Everybody's probably going to tell me that it's not working. Ta-dun, ta-dun, ta-dun. Ooh, some tools might be unavailable due to heavy traffic in this file. Uh-oh. I don't think I've ever had a 350, how many people are on this call? 340 people on the same Google Doc. If for some reason you can't get onto the Google Doc, don't worry. I'm going to send it out to everybody. So, let's try again. Yeah, it might be that I just totally overloaded the doc, and that's why. Oh, no, a bunch of people are on it. Okay, so some folks are able to get on it. All right, if you can't get on it, have no fear. You're going to be able to, we're going to email this all to you. And I'm sharing the screen now. All right, so let's get right into the resources. And heads up that this is like a commentable doc. So Riley, your comment is noted. All right. Oh, wow, there are a bunch of people on this doc. You don't need to copy and paste this just yet. In fact, it's probably going to be distracting to folks. So hold off on copying and pasting. Don't worry, you're going to be emailed this. All right. So here are the exercises that I love when it comes to helping students figure out their topic. The first one's called the Essence Objects exercise. And if you've been on my website before, you have maybe seen it before. But the Essence Objects exercise basically involves thinking about what are the memories, the moments, the standout images from my life that have somehow shaped me, and you express each one in terms of a different object. So I'll give you a couple examples. An essence object for me might be something like, this book, the Book of Beautiful Questions. Now, the reason why this book might be such a great book for me for my Essence Objects list is that I love beautiful questions. Beautiful questions for me serve in helping me with my work with students. They also help me connect with strangers, which is something that I love to do. They also, how else do they help me? Vulnerability is one of my core values. And so vulnerability helps, this beautiful questions help me get to that thing. So that would be one. In fact, I could just say if I wanted to, actually, a blank sheet of paper would be an essence object for me because that represents sort of potential and represents writerliness, which is something that I identify with. An essence object for me might be, I have a spreadsheet where I track all of my to-dos, like everything that I want to get done during the day, like meditating and eating healthy and what's one work thing I want to get done. So I would put my essence, even though that's not like an object, it's a spreadsheet, it's a thing that's concrete that represents other sides of me. And if you click that link, as many people are doing, you'll be guided through an exercise that's going to allow you to basically go through the essence objects exercise. We're not going to do it now because I want to get to a lot of other stuff. Okay, underneath that, we've got something called the values exercise. And the values exercise is a simple 4-minute exercise that allows you to figure out what matters to you. In fact, you could actually figure out right now, don't do it right now, what matters to you just by walking through that exercise in a little video. And it's basically a you go through and you identify what are your top 10 values, go down to 5, go down to 3, go down to 1. Now, the reason I love talking about values so much is that I feel like, and this is foreshadowing something I'm going to talk about later, I feel like when I get to the end of your personal statement, I should have a sense of what your core values are. Okay, so that's the first thing in terms of what goes into a great personal statement that I really want to see. Now, the reason I like students to talk about their essence objects is that I feel like once you're sort of getting into these things that are meaningful to you, when you're trying to describe why they're meaningful to you, I believe values can help us understand that. So, for example, I mentioned for this book of beautiful questions that I have next to me, some of the values that are important to me are like connection and vulnerability. And I kind of implied this one, but didn't say it overtly, but like meaningful work. And so in my personal statement, it could be that connection and vulnerability and why I do what I do, would come into that. So your values exercise can get you deep into what matters to you pretty quickly, within a few minutes. So these 2 exercises are going to take you about 15 minutes, but they're going to start getting your creative juices flowing. Now, beyond that, I've got a couple more that I really love for helping students brainstorm not just their personal statement topic, but much broader. So the next exercise is called the Everything I Want Colleges to Know About Me list. And it's just as it sounds. Basically create a blank Google Doc or a blank, MS Word doc or blank sheet of paper and make a list of all the things that you want colleges to know about you. And it could be something as specific as like, I really want them to know that I won this particular award in debate in the 11th grade, and I was the only person from my school to ever have won it. Great, that's probably going to go in your application somewhere. Or it could be something as abstract as like, I want the school to know that my grades don't truly represent who I am. Now, would that necessarily go into your personal statement? Maybe not, which we'll discuss in 48 hours and other parts of the application that you can use. But by brainstorming all the different things you want colleges to know about you, it helps you go big picture. I'm talking about all the parts of you. Next is the 21 details exercise. It's number 4 on your screen. The 21 details list is a little bit more random, a little bit more fun. It's basically make a list of 21 random facts about yourself. So on my 21 details list, I might put, let's say I was in high school, I might put, let's see, I love, I don't know if I would have used the word intimacy, but I love the intimacy that comes in a pickup game of basketball where you're meeting people for the first time, but you're connecting with them in a wordless communication way. There's something that happens, and there's a kind of a quality of connection that happens in very few other places in life. Basketball equals intimacy? What? Yeah. 21 details. I grew up, I was a missionary kid, and I went to 13 schools. Now that could become an essay, certainly. What else? I want to be an actor when I grow up. That's what I would have said when I was 17. Or a writer. I do love to write. Okay, so I'm just kind of riffing on like random things, random facts. You never know how one of these could lead to either a personal statement topic or a personal statement detail or a detail for one of your supplemental essays, which again, we'll talk about in 2 days. Finally, this preliminary essay tracker, activities list, and additional info sections are going to help you brainstorm the other parts of your application. The preliminary essay tracker is going to help you get organized with all the different supplemental essays that you'll need to write. And they're part of the pre-work that I give to all my students, even though we're not going to be focused on all these. If you're getting started on the process right now and you're getting ready to, and you're also going to come to the webinar in 2 days, I want you to go ahead and complete those, okay? And it's going to take you, the essence objects take about 12 minutes. The values exercise will take you, like I said, about 4 minutes. Everything I want colleges to know about me in 21 details are going to take you about 15 minutes each. And then the preliminary essay tracker might take you half an hour, depending on how well developed your school list is, as will the activities list and additional info. Now, I skipped one, the feelings and needs exercise. And this one, reason I skipped it, is that it's directly relevant to an exercise, or to an essay example that I'm going to show you in just a few minutes. Okay, so I'll come back to the feelings and needs exercise. But my favorite brainstorming exercise that I'm using right now, because you really needed 7 exercises, is, and you don't have to click that video right now, this is just when you're ready to do it. There's this movie called Inside Out, which you may have seen, and it has a cool little clip where the main character, Joy, describes something called core memories. And so I kind of, call this the core memories exercise. And the way it works is this, and if you want to do this with me right now, you can. Begins with listing, or you can do it in your mind, list 3 to 4 things that you know really well. So for me, one of the things that I know really well is games. I could also say I know a lot about self-help nonfiction books, or what else? North Carolina basketball, or productivity. Okay. So you make a list of 3 or 4 things you know really well. And you pick one, circle it, and write it at the top of your page, kind of like the example here. Then, using this values list, which I've linked, name 4 to 7 values that could connect to the thing that you know well and write them below. So for games, for example, I could link the values of connection, because for me, games really help me connect with others, whether I've known them a long time or just getting to know them. Creativity. I love thinking about how to make games better. I love to tweak games and be like, ooh, my daughter and I were playing a game with this carrots and a rabbit yesterday. And she's kind of like me in this way, where we're like trying to constantly reinvent how it could be better. Fun, that one's kind of obvious. Laughter, there are some belly laughs that I've had, particularly with the game Dixit, D-I-X-I-T, another one of my favorite ones, that trump everything. The other one that makes me laugh a ton is the game Drawful. I'm like giving you game tips here. That's like a game that you can play on your TV. And Quiplash is another one. Family, because I grew up playing games. Trivial Pursuit, charades were some big ones. Anyway, you get the idea. So once you've done that, you've listed a thing you know really well, and then you've given some different like values that it connects to. Each one of these can create what I call the islands of your personality, which in the case of the personal statement could be a different paragraph for your essay. So if this was like the game's personal statement, I could say something at the start like, you know, this would be kind of a cheesy first line, but I would probably give an example of like a game that I've played and, you know, throw the readers like right into the moment. And then probably at the end of the first paragraph or beginning of the second, I have a transition that was like, but games have shaped me in powerful ways in my life, for example. And then boom, I go into like each of these different games and how each one has shaped me, you know, usually themed by like a different value. And this is something called the montage structure, which I'll say more about in just a minute. But the montage structure basically involves choosing a thread or a theme, in this case games, and connecting it to different parts of you, showing how that thing has manifested in different areas of your life. The key to finding a great theme or thread is if something visual is a really nice thing, like again, you can kind of see different games. Like if I describe charades, you could see it in your mind. Or if I describe baseball, which is a game, you could see that. It creates a different image. Threads that work less well are like music. I mean, sometimes it's harder unless you can like really show us how to visualize music, but like the playlist of my life, it's hard if you try to theme it by like a different song for a different paragraph, because it's harder to like see that in our minds. So one of the things to remember is that like storytelling, and in this case, I think of this kind of as screenwriting, it's a visual art form. So the more visual your theme or thread is, the better. An example from a student that I worked with last year was like laptop stickers. She wrote an essay where each laptop sticker represented a different value for who she was and a different activity that she was involved with, or a different person in her life that was meaningful to her. So each one was kind of like a different essence object. Okay, once you've done that, then for each value, I want you to write down either a memory, and I gave you some mine, like the memory of playing Trivial Pursuit and charades with my family, or you could write down an essence object. So let's see. For the creativity one, I might give the essence object of like this. Let me think of one. I haven't thought of one off the top of my head. For connection games, I have this little deck of cards that has a bunch of questions on it. And sometimes when I'm going to a party or when I meet people for the first time, I'll take this little, and it comes from a game, but I actually just take the deck of cards because they got great questions on them. Because to me, that sort of is like a great way of just like getting to know people quickly. And that links to some of my other core values of like connection and vulnerability, which I already mentioned. And then, or an image. It could be like an image that really typifies that for you. So for example, I mentioned laughter, like just the belly aching laughs that I experienced at Big Bear last year on my wife's birthday, playing this game Dixit with my friends. So by brainstorming that's going to create a ton of content, and who knows, could lead to an essay. The reason I like to have students think of something that they know really well is that it's going to allow them, in many cases, to make connections to lots and lots of values. Okay, and that's part of what we're trying to do here is find something, a focusing lens, or what I call a thread or theme, or what I call a focusing lens that's going to connect to many different parts of you. Another word I use for that is like very elastic. Okay, so elastic connects to lots of different parts of you, and visual. That's how to find a great one. And I'll show you an example in just a second. Okay, actually we can do that now. So 2 potential essay structures. So I've mentioned montage structure, which basically makes thematic connections. So like A, B, and C are all connected by X thread. And what I mean by this is like, let's say my essay is games. This is the X thread. A, the part of me that loves to connect with people. B, the part of me that's really creative and loves to like reinvent things, which maybe isn't just with games, but in other areas too. And the part of me that just really loves to spend time with my family and connect with them, right? Or you could say that games help to create family pretty quickly. So maybe I'm taking family in another sense. So all these things, these sides of me, are all connected by the thread of games. Okay, so that's kind of how montage structure works. And later on, if you want to see another example of a montage essay, you can click this link. I know I'm going fast. Stay with me. I'm going to talk about narrative structure and the feelings and needs exercise in just a few minutes, but let me give you an example of how this can turn into an essay. So here's a student who couldn't figure out what he wanted to write about, and he thought he wanted to write about TED Talks. He was using that as like the thing at the top that connected to different parts of it. And he wanted to show his intellectual curiosity. But over the course of a few weeks, he realized that like that wasn't quite working. And so, he tried something else. And ultimately what he ended up with was his desk as the connective theme or thread. So check out his essay. I'm going to take a sip of water. I'm going to read it to you and talk to you about what I love about it. 6 years ago, a scrawny 12-year-old kid took his first steps in a Home Depot, the epitome of manliness. As he marched through the wood section, his eyes scrolled past the options. Red oak? No, too ubiquitous. Pine? No, too banal. Mahogany? Perfect. It would nicely complement his walls. As days went on, now by the way, we can already start to get a sense of who this guy is and what's important to him. And in fact, if I had to ask you, I mentioned core values are important. Can you kind of tell which values are important to him just from this opening? Notice the first sentence. 6 years ago, a scrawny 12-year-old kid took his first steps in Home Depot, the epitome of manliness. He's got some self-effacing humor there. So humor. And then he's trying to choose all these different kinds of different wood. So he's like meticulous, detail-oriented. He's also good with language too, right? So it's like words are important to him, ubiquitous, banal. These are some nice words. I'm not saying load your essay with a bunch of big words, unless you want to illustrate a certain value, in this case, attention to detail. As days went on, the final product was almost ready. 91-degree angles had been perfected to 90. Drawer slides had been lubricated 10 times over. Finally, the masterpiece was finished, and the little boy couldn't help but smile. A scrawny 12-year-old kid had become a scrawny 12-year-old man. This desk I sit at has not only seen me through the last 6 years, but its story and the story of the objects I keep on it provide a foundation for my future pursuits. Okay, this is about as like thesis-y as you're going to get in a personal statement, I think. You probably don't want to say at the start of your essay, like a thesis, like in the English, sense of like, I'm going to prove to you, I'm going to be a great college student. But this kind of it kind of creates the frame for us. We know the essay is going to be about the desk, and the story of its objects help give us some sense of what he's interested in doing in the future. Now, the reason I think this works as a thesis is because it kind of, makes us curious. It raises questions for us. Oh, well, how? Well, the problem with a thesis at the start is that sometimes it's like, it kind of ruins the ending of the essay. Like, I want to be a doctor, and this essay will tell you how I became to want to be a doctor. And it's like, it's kind of boring. Okay, but we're kind of curious now. Okay, how do the objects on your desk provide the foundations for your future pursuits? Second paragraph. My trusty 5-year-old laptop sits in the center of the desk. From accompanying me on my ventures to track null point errors in my apps, oh, by the way, I do coding, to playing, not me, but this guy, to playing classic Billy Joel after a rough day, old school music interest, my laptop's my first choice vehicle as I drive through a life of #curiosity, okay? And I like to hashtag when we get the values just to make sure that you're really getting that he's communicating values. Whether executing my simulations of stress analysis tests, teaching me how to make an origami lily, or showing me a TED Talk on why people find it difficult to poop away from home, my laptop has allowed me to find different versions of myself. Now, what works, I think, really well about this is that he's set up this value of curiosity. And in doing so, he's giving us these like specific examples of this, of curiosity. And by the way, that TED Talk original draft turned into, like, this is the only mention of a TED Talk now. So he wanted to get in that intellectual curiosity, but he realized he could do it in a different way. Though I'll probably call myself an engineer someday. So he casually mentions his career, no huge mention of it. My heart's in so many different places. I'm a philosopher, a historian, an economist, a black belt in Taekwondo, a techie, a farmer, a teacher, an inventor, an entrepreneur, a TED Talk, oh, he does mention TED Talks again, and a sports enthusiast. With each Google search, a new world opens. Okay, so what has he done here? He's taken the desk, and he's gone a little arrow, and he's gone curiosity. And the thing that shows the curiosity is the laptop. And so that's branching off into lots of different sides of who he is. Next paragraph. To my left is a stack of books. Okay, well, we know the format now. He's going to probably talk about a book. And by the way, that's such a great thing because he can pick any book to show whatever values he wants. See if you can tell what the value is. To earn a coveted top spot in the stack, the winning book has to have taught me a life lesson or made me cry. So more values, right? Life lesson. In other words, this is somebody who's interested in self-reflection and personal growth and development, or made me cry. So he's sensitive. Currently, the book on top is The Way of the Seal by Mark Divine. Divine's memoir details the training required to become an elite warrior and how that mentality can be applied to success in all aspects of life: social, mental, physical, spiritual. So what does this have to do with you? We need to know. Like Divine, I try to avoid a tunnel vision attitude and consider the implications of my actions on society at large as a leader and a role model. Cool example. While running my company, a nonprofit that kindles interest in STEM around the world, by the way, I've been particularly guided by the principle of leading from the battlefield. Now, quick tip. If you want to try and brag without seeming like you're bragging, you can kind of smuggle it in by connecting it to a value. And in this case, it's the value, the principle of leading from the battlefield. This mantra of collaborative leadership helps me facilitate many processes, from managing social media to collaborating with potential investors. Watch this. I'm also reminded to sometimes take a step back in the midst of a crisis and let the universe give me the answers. Okay, I'm labeling this insight. Why? Because he says something here that I don't expect him to say. I call this a so what moment, and it's the second quality of a great personal statement. So we've got core values, leadership, right? Curiosity. But in this case, he does something a little bit unusual where he's like, well, what's the key to leadership? Well, sometimes you need to step back, which not every leader is going to think of, right? Or think to say. Not every student is going to necessarily put that in their essay. And let the universe give me that. Because he's basically saying, like, let's wait. Which is kind of like, wait, aren't we supposed to like do something? No, he's saying sometimes we're not supposed to do anything. Cool, shows maturity. And will help differentiate him from all the other students writing leadership paragraphs. So how do you do this? Ask yourself, especially at the ends of the paragraph, so what? And see if you can drive to something that's a little bit more specific or a little bit more uncommon. To the right of the books is a bead bracelet, identical to the ones my parents and brother wear. Now, this is an essence object. When I look at it, I remember my parents' secret sign language as I stood on the stage at FBLA Nationals. Oh, by the way, I was at FBLA Nationals. 1 thumbs up means remember to breathe. 2 thumbs up means remember to smile for the photos. Regardless, I forgot to smile for the photo. When I look at the bracelet, I also see my little brother tugging on me, asking me countless questions as I repair my cube stacking robot. What's that weird looking spinny thing? Oh, it's obviously a 0.81 pound, 5mm shaft diameter, blah, blah, blah. I call this geeky language, which shows us that he's really into engineering. He knows what he's talking about here. I kind of trust him. One day you'll find me in a corner office somewhere running a couple different tech startups, but the desk I'll be sitting at is the same one. I never want to forget that at heart, I'm a confident, skinny little nerd, unafraid and eager to take my next Home Depot trip. Full circle, full circle. Okay, so what is he doing here? He's picked something that he knows well, the desk that he sits at, right? And he's connecting it to different qualities that he wants to demonstrate. So he wants to demonstrate curiosity. This is like curiosity. You'll see in the Inside Out clip, she talks about the islands of personality. And I think of this as a metaphor for college essays. Like each paragraph for the montage structure is like a different island of your personality. So there's like Curiosity Island and a bunch of examples showing Curiosity Island, right? And then there's like Leadership Island, right? Which is typified by this book. And here's the value of leadership that's most important to me. And here's a little insight about the kind of leader that I am. And then the bead bracelet is like Family Island, right? And it's like, here are all the different people in my life that are important to me. My brother, my dad, my mom, not all of them, but some of them. And here's a little insight into what it's like, being in my family. Oh, and by the way, he works in teaching, which is another quality, and that he has some idea about what a 0.81 pound, 5mm shaft diameter, 5,700 RPM, 35. Anyway, that he knows his stuff when it comes to like machines, we'll say. Okay, because this is a guy who's going to be an engineer and he's going to run some tech startups. So you can kind of see that he's smuggling in these different sides of himself. Again, connecting to the values. The values are so important. And if you've written a draft or you're worried about writing a draft where the brags are all up front, bring those back and bring forward the values. Like, what do you want us to really know about why that's important to you? Okay? All right. Narrative structure. So narrative structure, this was a student who took my course this summer, or no, last summer, sorry. She wrote this one, and it was based on something called the feelings and needs exercise. And the broad strokes version of this is when you're writing a story like this, and there are more details at this link, is about a character, or in this case, a main character, that's you, who wants something, who for some reason can't get it, does something, and then changes. So you can use that, and this is my friend Rob McLeod's format. Want, can't, do, and then change. And so those are the 4 elements that you want in your narrative essay. Now, if you've got 15 minutes, go to this exercise at the top and complete this feelings and needs exercise, particularly if you've been through challenges in your life. By going through that exercise is going to help you process, well, what did I in particular need? What was the challenge that I faced? What kind of feelings did I have? And what did I need based on that? And that can be the heart of your story. Okay. And then by working through that and figuring out and letting us know what you did about it and what you learned, that's what can lead to a great essay. Here's an example. I'm going to take a sip of water. The birth of Shere Khan. The narrow alleys of Mardan, Khyber, I don't know how to pronounce this, Pakhtunkhwa, Pakistan, where I spent the first 7 years of my life, were infiltrated with the stench of blood and helplessness. I grew up with Geo News Channel, with graphic images of amputated limbs and the lifeless corpses of uncles, neighbors, and friends. I grew up with hurried visits to the bazaar, my grandmother in her veil, and 5-year-old me outrunning spontaneous bomb blasts. On the open rooftop of our home, where the hustle and bustle of the city were loudest, I grew up listening to calls to prayer, funeral announcements, gunshots. I grew up in the aftermath of 9/11, confused. Now, when you go through the structure, that little thing that I've linked above, this is called the status quo. This was her world. Like the faint scent of mustard oil in my hair, the war followed me to the United States. So, again, when you go to the exercise, you'll see something called the inciting incident. This is the moment that launches her story. She moves to the US. Here, I was the villain, responsible for causing pain. In the streets, in school, and in Baba's taxi cab, my family and I were equated with the same Taliban who had pillaged our neighborhood and preyed on our loved ones. So think about this for a second. Here's somebody who had left Pakistan to avoid war, to get away from war, and when she got to the US was actually seen as the villain, the perpetrator, the people that she was trying to escape from. War followed me to freshman year of high school, when I wanted more than anything to start new and check off my to-dos in my bullet journal. Now, she's done a nice job of getting pretty quickly into high school. Colleges aren't as interested in what you've done when you were a kid, only if it provides crucial context for what happened in high school in the last few years. What have you done for me lately? Or what have you experienced lately? And I think she does a great job of this. Every time news of a terror attack spread, I could hear the whispers, visualize the stares. So still, she's experiencing essentially racism. Instead of mourning victims of horrible crimes, I felt personally responsible, only capable of focusing on my guilt. So she went through the feelings and needs exercise, and 2 of the feelings she felt were like a feeling of responsibility and guilt, which is kind of an insight. Like, I didn't expect her to say that. The war had manifested itself in my racing thoughts and bitten nails when I decided that I couldn't and wouldn't let it win. Turning point. So what did she do about it? A mission to uncover parts of me that I'd buried in the war gave birth to a persona, Shere Khan, the Tiger King, my radio name. As media head at my high school, I spend most mornings mastering the art of speaking and writing lighthearted puns into serious announcements. Now, isn't it, if she had just started with this, we would have been like, okay, fine. But the context now of who this person is who is giving these morning announcements, awesome. Now we know who's speaking. In other words, sometimes students will write their personal statement just based on an extracurricular activity, which probably you could argue that being media head is an extracurricular activity. But with that context, suddenly it's that much richer when we imagine her speaking. Laughter, I've learned, is one of the oldest forms of healing, a survival tactic necessary in war and peace, too. So in her What I Did About It column, and this will make more sense after you've done the feelings and needs exercise, she brought in this What I Did About It, I made people laugh. During sophomore year, I found myself in international human rights. This is what I call a leveling up moment. A summer course at Cornell University that I attended through a local scholarship. So she's just letting the reader know that, like, hey, I didn't just go to Cornell. I actually won a scholarship, which is cool for 2 reasons. 1, it shows that she was smart enough or awesome enough, someone saw her potential to give her a scholarship. And 2, that this wasn't just something that she paid like $8,000 for. This was actually something that, probably given her finances, she was able to win. So it was paid for by the school. local scholarship, sorry, not by the school, but through someone who thought she was smart enough and worthy enough to win this. I went into class eager to learn about laws that protect freedom and came out knowledgeable about ratified conventions, the International Court of Justice, and the repercussions of the Srebrenica massacre. To apply our newfound insight, 3 of my classmates and I founded our own organization dedicated to youth activism and spreading awareness about human rights violations. Fight for human rights. Now, again, if she just led with like, here's a thing that I do, without the context, it wouldn't have been as rich. Today, she says, we have 7 state chapters led by students across the US and a chapter in Turkey too. What? Although I take pride in being editor of the Golden States chapter, I enjoy having written articles about topics that aren't limited to violations within California. Addressing and acknowledging social issues everywhere is the first step to preventing war. So there's like a kind of personal mission statement. Cool. Earlier this year, through KQED, a Bay Area broadcasting network, I was involved in a youth takeover program, and I co-hosted a Friday news segment about the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals Policy, DACA, the travel ban, and the vaping epidemic. Within a few weeks, my panel and interview were accessible worldwide, watched by my peers in school and family thousands of miles away in Pakistan. Although the idea of being so vulnerable initially made me nervous, I soon realized that this vulnerability was essential to my growth. Insight! And a nice what I learned moment. I never fully escaped war. It's evident in the chills that run down my spine whenever an untimely call reaches us from family members in Pakistan, and in the funerals still playing on Geo News. So there's a nice moment where she's not saying everything's perfect now. So it's kind of, qualified. But she says, I'm working towards a war-free life, internally and externally, for me and the individuals who can share in my experiences, for my family, and for the forgotten Pashtun tribes from which I hail. Whew. For now, I have everything to be grateful for. War has taught me to recognize the power of representation, value, to find courage in vulnerability, double value and insight, and best of all, to celebrate humor. I love this essay. So, how does this work? She begins with the status quo. I faced war in Pakistan. The inciting incident. Whoops. Someone just pasted all the stuff below. I don't know why. I will try to undo, and actually I won't make it so shareable next time to avoid random pastings. But here's the basic outline. Status quo. So I was facing war. Inciting incident. I came to the US, which changed my world up, but raised the stakes, which is like this makes the thing, whatever the thing that happened to you, more important. Instead of finding safety, I actually became seen as the villain. Moment of truth, I decided to do something about it. What did I do? I started speaking. I used laughter to try and work through some of this stuff. And after this Cornell, this class that I took at Cornell, I started this organization, which is helping to fight for social justice, for human rights. New status quo, things aren't perfect now, but I have been able to find some kind of peace, and I've learned some valuable things about myself. Okay, the 4 qualities of a personal statement. I mentioned 2, I want to cover 2 others. Number 1, core values. What are her core values? I think they're really clear, right? In the first essay, we have curiosity, we have leadership, we have family. In this one, we've got vulnerability, we've got courage, we've got social justice, right? Equality, human rights. There are many others, but we've got at least 4. Insight. There are certain moments where she says a thing we didn't necessarily expect her to say. The vulnerability and courage line is a really nice insight. Even the fact that she decides to do something about it is an insight into who she is. In other words, she doesn't sort of go, well, I'm just going to roll over and do nothing. Another insight moment is when she says laughter as a way to heal. That's a beautiful insight. Vulnerability. And you can kind of, when you're writing your personal statement, maybe you've already got one, you can ask yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, how vulnerable is it? 0 being not at all vulnerable, 10 being super vulnerable. And to me, this feels like it's kind of in the 7 to 8 range, which I think is a really good spot. The My Desk essay, less vulnerable, maybe 4 to 5, but there's some nice little self-effacing humor moments where he's this scrawny 12-year-old man. So there's a little bit of vulnerability. You don't need to be vulnerable, level 10 vulnerable, in order to have a great essay, but you can kind of, I think it's somewhere in that range of 4 to 8. Is it personal? And if you've already written a draft, could it be more personal? If so, how? And finally, craft. Is it clear, well written, and interesting? And that comes with, with drafting. Is it clear what the essay is doing? Is it well structured? I think both of these essays are well structured for some of the reasons that I pointed out. Are they well written? Yeah, because these students spent at least 5 drafts, revising. And is it interesting? Yeah. One of the things that makes an essay really interesting is, are you raising a question at the start that keeps us engaged throughout? In the first essay, here's, how is it that we're wondering that the objects on your desk lead to like your future pursuits, right? In the second essay, what's going to happen to this girl who came to the U.S. to escape war and actually is then seen as the villain, the very people that she was trying to escape? What? Keto makes a comment that I want to bring in. As someone who was displaced because of war, this essay gives me a good perspective how to write my story narratively. Right, Ethan? Yes, Keto. And you can use that feelings and needs exercise to process a little bit of that. I think if that's been something that's happened for you, it can definitely make for a powerful story. The key, Keto, is to make sure that most of the essay isn't just about the challenge, right? But at some point, probably right around the 1/3 mark, you get into what you did about it and what you learned. You can kind of use a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 structure for that. We're right at the 40-minute part, which is right where I wanted to be. I want to share with you just a little quick 90-second PSA on this course that I put together. So let me share that screen with you, and then we'll do Q&A. All right. So in my personal statement course, which we're going to do a little offer for it here at the end, basically each of my courses, this is the personal statement one, come with a series of videos where, in this case, you click on how to structure each of the 4 essay types, and it'll take you more deeply into narrative structure, and it talks about 4 different types of essays. And these videos will walk you through how to write each of those types of essays. And then there's some other resources in here, how to revise your essay in 5 steps, especially when you get stuck, how to, at the end of your process, make sure your essay is really doing its job and what the job of the essay is. And then you'll see how to bring it to life. You'll see me giving revisions on real essays. And anyway, Devin, my brother who's on this call, will put up a little link here in a few minutes that will allow you to, a little code that will allow students to get 50% off the courses. So that's it. That's coming up. All right, I know we had a bunch of questions, and so let's get to some of them. I'm gonna make that, while folks are thinking of their questions, I'm gonna actually make that doc view only. So that, I wanted to make it comment only so that folks could, find, but actually I can't do it right now from this email address. I'll have to do it later. Okay, what questions do folks have? Let's see. Devin answered some of them. Can you still register for the Thursday webinar? You totally can. In fact, I think you're already registered. Let me scroll on bottom to get the earlier questions. Would it be okay if we used something, Joanna asks, that happened in her life before high school? Yeah, totally. But again, it should be primarily, most of the essay should take place after that event. So if that was your inciting incident that changed your life, yes, but I wouldn't focus 70% of the essay on the thing that happened in, say, middle school. It should probably be just the first third. If there's something really outstanding from elementary school, would you use it as a small example or evidence of a point? Maybe, but again, don't focus too much on it. Let's see. The essay needs to say something. So somebody's already in here answering all these questions. Thanks, Johnny. Ella. Oh, Ella's answering the questions too. Great. What else? People are asking what games I played. What if you're better at more abstract writing than image-based, visual description focused writing? Jack, give me more on what your question is. I'm not sure what you mean by abstract writing. I think that by abstract, I guess I don't know what you mean by abstract writing, because I think that using images is actually kind of abstract. So you might actually be really good at this. Let's see. Yeah, Manasi asked the same question. Okay, Jack says, I'm much better at writing when paying attention to ideas and analysis rather than physical descriptions. I can probably try to state that better, but tell me if you get it now. I want to try and encourage you. And Jack, one thing might be to just read some personal statements. So if you Google personal statement examples or college essay examples, college essay guy, you'll see a bunch of what I consider to be really nice ones. They're probably 30 or so on the site. That will give you a sense based on these 4 qualities that I'm talking about. And I'm not saying that those 4 qualities are the only qualities you need. I just looked back at a bunch of essays that I loved, and found that those were the qualities that were the most, that they were common, to the essays that I really loved. Let's see. Shouldn't this essay correlate with the teacher recommendation? Yeah, I mean, it should hopefully, but and one of the ways that you can do that is by, if you're writing a draft or you've written a draft or you've done some of the brainstorm exercise that I've done, is sharing that with your teacher. If you Google college essay guide teacher recommendation, you'll see a whole thing that you can fill out and share with your teacher in order to make sure that you have some, that you can help your recommender basically. I'm not saying that you need to tell them what to write, but you can give them more information. That's assuming your teacher isn't already giving a form that you need to fill out. If so, go what they say, do what they say. But you also can't control what they say in the recommendation because you're not going to get to see it. How many words long is the essay? About 650. That's how long your personal statement is probably going to be if you're on the Common App. If you're on the Coalition app, more like 500, 550. Okay. Let's see. Okay. A lot of us don't have these insane stories from our childhood. This would be more helpful if it was written by someone pulling from a story from pretty standard middle-class life. If you've got something crazy like that, it's pretty easy to pick an essay topic. I'd say that's true for the narrative essay, the challenge essay. If you'll look, just to give you some other example essays that you can look at, if you'll Google for like a narrative essay, debate essay, college essay guy, you'll see a student who basically was just really shy. And the big challenge that she was trying to overcome was that. And she tried some stuff that didn't work, right? That's the can't. She wanted to become less shy, couldn't do it. And then she did some stuff about it and came out of her shell. So that's a good one for that. And then in terms of montage essays, if you just Google personal statement examples or college essay examples, you'll see some others. Let's see. Let's see. Looking for some more questions. Johnny's like super big help. Focus on values over bragging. I happen to attend a pretty achievement-focused high school, and our counselors more or less said to try not to humble brag, but talk about yourself instead of accomplishments. I agree. And if sometimes those accomplishments are coming off really clearly in the other parts of your application, Jack, then you won't need to. Okay. We're talking about changing a desired major, despite everyone's expectations of me, to one that I'm really passionate about work. Go through the feelings and needs exercise, Zachariah, and see if you can connect to why this was truly meaningful to you. And one of the questions that I would ask you is like, what needs? It depends on how interesting the core conflict is and how much it impacted you. If this is like your life story, then yes. If you feel like it's like, nah, not really the depth of who I am, then you might try that montage structure. And Jason's asking, so does it go status quo, inciting incident, new status quo? Broadly speaking, yes, but sometimes these can switch. So you can start with the inciting incident, which is the moment that launches everything, and then get into, this is the context. By the way, side note for those of you who feel like these are incredible examples, yeah, they are. And the reason I show incredible examples is because I feel like we can learn more from that. But the content of it, like in other words, the pieces of the montage are going to kind of work in the same way. So the thing that you write in the circle at the top, and then the parts of yourself that you connect to are, going to be particular to you, and how you get into like how you describe each of those values and why it's meaningful to you may lead to an essay that doesn't look like this guy's essay, but could still be really awesome. Yeah, I'll say that. And there are definitely other ways of structuring your essay. Definitely. Let's see. Looking, how long do you think an average writer can finish personal essay if he follows your strategy? A couple weeks at least. I mean, I find that students don't write these in a night. So I find that it's somewhere between 5 and, I don't know, sometimes students take up to 10 drafts. It just depends on how hard you want to work, and it depends on how selective the schools are that you're applying to. For some schools, if you've got amazing grades and the school, let's say you got a 4.0 and the school, you just need a 3.0 to get in, and you don't really need to, maybe you don't even need to write an essay, then the essay won't matter too much. But for highly selective schools, I think the essay matters a little bit more when it comes to setting you apart from other students that have similar GPAs and test scores. Let's see. What's a great way to find better words for your essay? I feel like there are just a few words or phrases with my essay that make it feel incomplete. I wouldn't worry too much about the words. Chances are, Yijen, that it's like, so it goes content and then structure and then details. And I find that oftentimes it's not the details that are the thing. It's oftentimes the quality of the content and the way that it's structured that can really help an essay pop. Sometimes, in this case, both of these examples that I gave, the content was like really awesome, and and I think that sometimes makes for a more awesome essay. But the details, like I wouldn't suggest necessarily just going through a thesaurus. I would suggest telling. Actually, one great way to get feedback on your essay is to just find somebody that you can tell your essay to tell your story to, and see what they have to say. For tips on like how to do that, if you Google the Great College Essay Test, you'll see a little PDF that you can work through in a little video to help up-level your essay. Could writing about a weak eye experience become a great essay? Well, I think it's really hard to do that. So my sense is that maybe I've never read a great essay on a week that you experience, unless it was. I guess you could. Anything could work, but I think it would be really tough to do. What are some tips on making a cliche topic sound non-cliche? Great. I'm going to talk about this next week, but the quick answer to this, Sophia, is, you know what? I'm going to save that one. I'm going to save that one for next week because it's more relevant to the extracurricular essay. So I'm going to wait. And plus, then maybe you'll join me not next week, in 2 days. Let's see. Ella, I've done all the exercises and come up with a whole bunch of unique experiences, values, and interesting things I want to convey to colleges. Which structure would you suggest for me? Montage. Ethan, how can I check whether my essay is interesting enough? Thank you. Do the Great College Essay Test. Roshwan. Hasita, should my essay begin with the status quo? How important is the structure? The structure is very important because it's what helps make the essay interesting. And should you begin with the essay with the status quo? I don't know. You might not need a status quo, Hasita. It could be that you just start with the inciting incident, go into raising of the stakes. If you're like, what is he talking about? Google narrative structure college essay guy and bookmark the page. And it could be just going into those like straight from the thing. I mean, you're going to need give a little context if you're starting with your inciting incident at some point, but you may not need it at the start. What are some examples of risk taking for high schoolers? Do you mean essays or do you mean just risks in general? If you mean essays, Carolyn, I've seen students who have given their essay like a provocative title, maybe a controversial title. I've seen a risk, is like starting off with an ambiguous question, like, is every life of equal value? That's kind of a risk. Another risk is like to end your essay with, without like tying it up in a neat little bow. Like I've seen one student who like failed and he reveals the failure at the end of the essay and doesn't make it better and says that's a heavy burden. But there was so much richness in the essay of like in core values and insight that it didn't matter so much that he had failed. It was like more that he really understood the weight of it. So that was a risky ending. What are some other? I'm going to take a sip of water. What are some other risks? Using an unconventional style, like starting your essay with like day 23. And you'll see this if you Google personal statement examples and just going into, and eventually you need to kind of give the reader a sense of what is day 23 and the next one is day 41. Well, what are we talking about? I don't know if that fully answers your question, but those are some examples and you'll see some more. Are there any other structures you didn't mention in this video? So Zachariah, you're either focusing on a challenge that you're overcoming and there's like a cause and effect relationship, like, this thing happened to me. I was super shy and then I tried some stuff and it didn't work, but then I joined debate and then I came out of my shell and now I want to be a lawyer or whatever that is. That's what I call narrative structure when you're trying to overcome a challenge. If you're not trying to overcome a challenge, I'm calling that montage structure. And for a montage to work, essentially, you've got all these different sides of you that you want to show, like your leadership and curiosity and connection to family, but you're finding a theme, something that connects them all. And so you need some kind of organizing principle, right? Narrative structure, the organizing principle is chronological. This happened, and this happened, and this happened. For montage structure, the organizing principle is thematic. Everything, objects on my desks, stickers on my laptop, the scrapbook of my life, the number 12, cupcakes, This is the thing that connects all the different things. So there are variations on these, Zachariah, but basically the way that I'm splitting this whole thing is like, have you faced a challenge? If so, it could be that narrative structures work for you. If not, maybe try a montage. And there are variations on the montage structure, which I don't have time to get into right now. How do you make your essay introduction catchy? Get us to raise a question for us that you don't answer until the end of the essay. Can you use an allegory in an essay? Yes. What was the prompt that the essay was answering? Topic of your choice, my favorite prompt. How do you make a cliche essay topic stand out? I'm going to talk about that in 2 days. How can I work on the fluidity of my essay? I'm having trouble with making my personal statement flow better. Guillermo, Google revising your essay in 5 steps. There's an exercise that will help you do that. What are you feeling about writing about finding your true love as a 17-year-old? I wouldn't recommend it, Tracy. I think it's too hard to do. Let's see. Ro, I'm frustrated because I sincerely want to know how to expand on a more ordinary life than an immigrant and war survivor. Ooh, I hear that's, what I would suggest, Ro, is trying the montage structure, okay? Because I wouldn't try and make a challenge seem more of a challenge. If you're feeling like, oh, trying to find your biggest challenge, I wouldn't necessarily focus on that. I would try the montage. What about a narrative that doesn't have much of a moment of truth? It's okay, Jack. Not every story will. You just basically, leave that part out. Is moving too cliche of a topic to choose? It's pretty common, Charlotte. And I'm not saying don't write about it, but it's harder to stand out with that topic. What values or attributes do colleges look for the most in students? Ooh, leadership, creativity, grit, humor, intellectual curiosity. What's considered to be too personal for a college essay? Adam, increasingly, writing about mental health issues is becoming more and more common, and it makes it more difficult to stand out. So that's kind of a sideways answer to your question. But oftentimes things like, I'll just use mental health, that can be explained in the additional information section, something that I'll talk about in the next webinar. What would be too personal? Committing a crime, breaking the law, that would be too personal. Maria, can I talk about something that has influenced my life, but is not something I do frequently? It's like a ritual in my family. Yeah, that sounds cool. How do I know if I should write narrative or montage? Benjamin, do you have a challenge that has fundamentally shaped who you are as a person? Most students don't. If you do, try the narrative. If you don't, I would try montage. Scrolling up. Is talking about an encounter with a stranger from Japan that sparked a personal growth a good topic? I don't think so, Gabrielle, because oftentimes those one-offs meeting of strangers, they're pretty common, and they often end up seeming like, I don't know, it's like making something, sometimes people say, make something small seem really large. I think that's really hard to do. Because it's just hard to point to that as like now, if you could put that in the context of like, that was the turning point in my life, we would need some context to know what challenges you were facing, what your needs were, and why this moment suddenly changed things for you. So potentially, but I think it sounds hard to do. How creative can we be with the wording? Pretty creative. For example, is it too much of a stretch if part of it's written in form of a poem? I would just use parts of it. I wouldn't do the whole thing as a poem. I would love to see a great essay from someone a little less accomplished. Great, Google personal statement example or college essay examples and you'll see a bunch. Is it better to have a career objective in mind already? Is it okay to be undecided? You can totally be undecided. You don't have to talk about your career in your essay. I moved from Cali to New York in elementary school. It really impacted my life, but is it not recent enough? Maybe not, Katie. I'd be curious to hear more about some other parts of you from stuff that happened more recently. Is debate and MUN too boring or cliche to write about? I think it might not make a great personal statement topic because it is pretty common. But on Thursday, I'll talk to you about how to make a common topic like an extracurricular essay stand out. How can I write about my exchange year to the US in my essay? With the two structures I've talked about. So there's the challenge and how that posed certain challenges and how you overcame. Or you could do a montage, like here are all the cool things and parts of me, like exchange year. What values did it help you develop? You saw that like little jellyfish thing that I did. You could put exchange year at the top, and then what different values did you develop during that exchange year? The courses, Joaquin, are on demand. You can watch them anytime you want. You just sign up. Would you recommend working on multiple different essays and pick your favorite, or pick one topic and put all your effort? I would say outline a couple different ones. That could be really cool. But then I'd say ultimately probably the right one. Some of the questions are repeating. What advice do you have for students who have a tendency to run on and on when writing? Go for it. Run on and on. I think it's fine for a first draft. You can come back and edit later. We'll take a couple more questions because we're almost at time. Throughout high school, I feel like I don't have a solid storyline that I can create from my extracurriculars or experiences. How do you recommend to piece together activities that are seemingly unrelated? Find a montage, a little thread that connects them all. And it's kind of hard to find these, but you'll see a bunch of examples on the site, and focus on the values that each one has brought you. Okay, look for patterns. What I would suggest, Eliana, is going through the exercises that I mentioned at the beginning and look for patterns or things that connect them. Okay, that's all my time. I want to, be good to y'all and end on time. I will be here again on Thursday. If I didn't get to any of those questions, please join us. I'd love to jam with you, and we'll cover other parts of the application, like the extracurricular essays. We'll cover what else? The Why Us essay briefly. We'll get in the activities list and the additional info section. All right, have an awesome night, and thanks for joining.